Alabama makes a schedule announcement yesterday on the South Florida deal. I think it's fine. I think they're probably concerned about their non-conference football schedule a little bit. It's not easy to get it the way people want it. So maybe comment on that to start off with.
Right, you're not going to make everybody happy, no matter how you did it. There are going to be people. First of all, you have to concentrate on making your own fans happy. But there are people even in Tuscaloosa and people that are Alabama fans who think that you should play, Notre Dame and Ohio State and Penn State every year as your non-conference games. And what you have to do is sort of find a balance between having some games like that, which are important. And I like home and home games, and I like home and home series, and I like that Greg Byrne has got Texas and Oklahoma and Notre Dame on the schedule. What people understand is those schedules are so booked up so far in advance that you just can't, even for 2023, which is the first year of that South Florida schedule, you can't just go and say, okay, Michigan, Southern Cal, let's play a home and home. They have many more moving parts than that to get scheduled at all. And so South Florida, I think, is a good compromise and a good 2-for-1 because there's an economic component to it too. And we'll see when we get a FOI on the contracts whether South Florida is also getting some money for that other road game or whether it's a straight 2-for-1 swap. It helps South Florida. They'll play at Raymond James, I'm sure. The NFL stadium in Tampa and get 61,000 people in there for a home game, which helps them in a lot of ways and helps them sell tickets. And then, so that's worth 2 games for them. And you have some people who particularly 2 years ago and to some extent last year, why didn't anybody play in Central Florida? Why didn't Alabama play in Central Florida? Well, you have to schedule games like that, and you can't know 3-4 years in advance that Central Florida is going to be undefeated, or South Florida, or Memphis, or Houston, or whoever it's going to be. But you put the most attractive teams from the American, or from CUSA, or from Sunbelt, and you try and get the best opponents that you can. And with that said, they're also playing Texas in 2023. So it's not just South Florida on the schedule. Yeah.
So I'm assuming when they got the Texas, Notre Dame, South of those games, the neutral field game will go away. Is that your understanding?
In those years,
yeah.
I think that there's still a possibility of a neutral here and there, but the years you're playing out of West Virginia, you're not also going to play a neutral,
right?
Or even the years it'd be more likely. For instance, the year West Virginia's coming to Tuscaloosa or Notre Dame's coming to Tuscaloosa, but you could schedule that way. You could also say, well, all right, we'll play a neutral in Atlanta against Virginia Tech. I'm just throwing a team out there. But not everybody schedules that way, and you're in competition with teams. The way the playoff's structured now, you're in competition with teams that don't schedule that way.
Is that part of Nick Saban? I think he's always one that he changes when he sees need for change. Like bringing Lane Kiffin, he felt like he needed to change. I think he's gotten a lot out of that neutral field game. He understands they want to raise a lot of money here. He understands enthusiasm around the program. They probably need to play better home games. Is that him changing his process a little bit, realizing that's what the football program needs?
Sure. He's I think he's always been amenable.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people say, he and Alabama every year, and it'll happen again this year, probably at the discussion level, have always been the advocates for the 9-game conference schedule. But they don't get a lot of traction with that. Nothing's going to come out of that unless some other teams in the league want to do that too. And people still, it's just a different. It's just like life. Everybody's needs are a little bit different. Alabama's certainly now and most years, but certainly under Coach Saban, they're not sitting around fretting about whether they can get 6 wins and get to a bowl game and the coach keep his job. That's not a issue. They're concerned about getting into the playoff and sort of surviving the schedule and being able to do that. And you can't do it with, or you're less likely to do it if your schedule includes Texas and Notre Dame, and then you've got to turn around and play a championship game against Georgia.
Yeah.
So then you've got 10 conference games. Well, who's going to go 10-0 in their conference game? It's hard enough as it is. So they try to balance all that out, but at the same time, Missouri or Kentucky is sitting there, Arkansas, they're sitting there and looking at it and saying, where can we find 6 wins? Why do we want to add a 9th conference game? And all of a sudden I got to play, say you're Arkansas, all of a sudden I got to play Georgia and Florida plus the 2 East teams I'm already playing, plus I can barely survive against the 6 teams in the West.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
They got to, and that's not a knock against Arkansas. They played those neutral site games, and they're going to play Texas and Colorado, I think, is on their schedule, and they do what they can too, but they're looking at a different rebuilding perspective, and it's important to them to get 6 or 7 wins.
Yeah, that.
In college basketball, generally speaking, I'm not trying to go back to when I coached because it was different, but I think you'd get hammered pretty fast back then in the 80s if things came out the way they have come out now. We're going through a period of time where there's a lot of discussion about what they're going to do. For me, at Arizona and LSU, they always put they've already done something in Louisville. Are we going? My feeling is that they're going to penalize the school and keep the coach. I think Barry leans a little bit more that they're going to penalize the coach. My opinion is that Chuck Person is going to get a lot of the time. I don't know. I guess the question is the way they're handling it, without knowing a whole lot, the best way to handle this, or should they have hammered somebody?
Well, I would say that right now, if you don't do something, if you sit there and I think Arizona's signed, 2 top 25 players, and LSU just signed, a 5-star player out of Birmingham. And, I'm not saying what the details of any of those were, because certainly in Arizona's case, I don't know. And I'm not accusing the Watford family of anything or LSU of anything, but I can promise you the perception around the country is that they're doing it the same way that people have heard it described in these trials and on these wiretaps.
Yeah. Sure.
So when you say do something to the coach, you got to be prepared for the lawsuit, because there'll be a lawsuit. There'll be. It doesn't matter if they caught you knee deep in $100 bills. Coach is going to sue if he gets fired, and try and if only to try and force a settlement. So at the same time, I think that's how coaches would like to see situations like that handled, because it's tough to sit down with the coach and I'm just going to throw a random school. Let's say you're the coach at Colorado State. It's tough to explain to him why he shouldn't go out and cheat. Why shouldn't he? Because you're going to have to compete against guys anyway. You get to the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to compete against people who you honestly believe are breaking the rules, and there's no disincentive to keep you from doing it. So how do you explain to him, well, you don't need to do that? Yeah. It's a little different at schools with, huge revenue streams, giant football programs, and so forth. But that their employers have some incentive to discourage them. But if the employer doesn't care and the NCAA doesn't care, and it's just up on the coach's conscience, well, different coaches have different consciences.
Yeah, I just, I guess those contracts are written, Cecil. I mean, you can have all the hearsay you want. I guess that's how you want your contract. But if you can't prove it, then you can't fire the guy. I mean, everybody.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Barry. People think that it's criminal court proof, and it's not. The NCAA, they prove based on hearsay. 90% of the cases that have ever been made in the NCAA have been made on hearsay.
Yeah. So how does Will Wade survive then? Because
we'll see what they do in the long run. Greg Sankey will get asked about this next week. The SEC meetings are in Destin next week, and obviously he won't comment specifically on Will Wade, but Greg's got experience on the Committee on Infractions. He's the commissioner of a major conference, and behind the scenes, and I'm not going to single out, but I'll guarantee you there are coaches in the league who are saying about other schools, what the heck are they? What the heck am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do if they're going to do what they've been, pretty credibly accused, whether you say it's hearsay or not, pretty credibly accused of doing.
Yeah. What was, Cecil, I don't know if you can share it, and what was the backstory on LSU? I mean, why would Watford, if you look at it, I can see, it makes me so mad he's going to LSU. His dad gets laughs, but I can handle him going to Memphis. That's fine. I got no more recruit. If he goes to Kentucky, I can see it. But LSU, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't know if he at the end of the process, if he had an offer on the table that he could sign from Kentucky or Duke or, frankly, from Memphis. Because I think they kind of recruited past him.
Right.
LSU does have an assistant coach who had been at Birmingham, played at UAB. Bill Armstrong played at UAB and been on the staff at Birmingham Southern and has a lot of connections. I think he's from Blount County, Alabama. And so I think when he was, and then was on Andy Kennedy's staff a long time. But I think when Christian Watford was young, he would go to camps at Birmingham Southern and was involved in with Bill Armstrong then. So they did have that connection. Whether that's a powerful enough connection, it's an interesting question. You have to really, given everything that's surrounding LSU in terms of uncertainty right now. I'm not saying anybody's guilty, but I'm saying there's a lot of uncertainty. You must really want to go to LSU. You'd have to really like an assistant coach to say that's where I'm going to sign.
Yeah.
But my personal opinion is playing time.
Could be. I'll be interested to see if they lose. They're going to lose Naz Reid. They're going to lose Tremont Waters. They might. I don't think Emmett Williams has indicated one way or another what he's going to do, and maybe. And they hadn't, partly because of what's been surrounding the program. They hadn't had a super recruiting year this year. I think they signed a JUCO and another player, but certainly not as highly rated as Trenton. And he's good enough to play, no question about that. He'll get playing time. If they expect him to be Naz Reid, they're looking at the wrong player, I think.
Yeah,
Naz Reid's 6'10" and 250. And that's not Trenton's game. That's just not what he's going to do. Now, does that mean he can't help him? Of course not. He's a good enough player to play and to help, and so and I think he'll get plenty of playing time. But I think there are a lot of places he could have gotten playing time. And if you're as good as he has been advertised by a lot of recruiting services, and all you get playing time anywhere. So that may have been a factor in it. They may have said, well, he can go in and replace Naz Reid, but I don't know if we see what we want to see. sometimes. And I don't know if you couldn't look at Alabama and say the same thing about going in and replacing Dante Hall. You know, if you're a 5-star player and you look at Alabama's roster, why wouldn't you say that you could get playing time? If you look at Auburn's roster with OKK leaving, why wouldn't you say you could get playing time? So
I just think the brother and dad, I think gave bad advice personally. I would have gone.
You know,
but that's just my opinion.
End of the day, it's their decision.
Sure.
You know, and we'll know if it was good advice, bad advice 2-3 years from now.
Yeah, if basketball doesn't work out, I think the kid is a really good kid. The way I was looking, if you didn't go those other places, you come back to Alabama and you work for, you got a job the rest of your life, as good a kid as he is. So I just seemed like the obvious choice. But
yeah, but you know, a lot of, as you know, you've recruited. A lot of factors go into it.
Yeah, we'll just leave that one there. All right, before we let you go, Ross Bjork going to Texas A&M. You know, Dad and I are anti-transfer portal guys, but these guys, ADs jumping from SEC school to SEC school. I mean, these coaches going to have to shut their mouth about that because the ADs are doing it. Is that a good look for the SEC? So these ADs going from one school to the next in the league?
I guess Greg Byrne put a trip to Arizona in between there. So, you know, you try and hire guys. First and foremost thing that presidents are looking for when they make that hire are guys that they think can help their bottom line, whether that's fundraising or promotion or helping the coaches win, where you sell more tickets and have strong television packages, you know, because it's a money-driven situation. I think that's Ross's reputation. You would have said, you know, not to go back to our earlier conversation, you would have said on the day that they were getting their penalties and all the Hugh Freeze fallout, you say, well, that guy will never get a job again. But you see that he's managed to survive it. So,
yeah, I'm not going to say that anymore. I said Bruce Pearl wouldn't survive. I said Sean Miller wouldn't survive. I said Will Wade wouldn't survive.
He is at Liberty, but, you know, he's coaching, and Ross is AD and probably making more money at A&M than he ever make at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
You know, that's and I've got nothing against Ross. I know a lot of media members felt like he kind of misled them during that investigation. I didn't really have anything to do with it, so it didn't bother me. But I will say I was a little bit surprised. I don't know that the fact you were at another SEC school, whether it's Greg Burns or any of these guys who've made that move, you know, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing or a disqualifier.
Yeah. Well, Cecil, thanks so much for your time. It was great stuff as always. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.